One, my name. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bloomfield Board of Education Candidate Forum. I am Joy Willis, and on behalf of the Black citizens of Bloomfield, the Bloomfield DE&I Network, represented by Carolina Gonzalez, and the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, represented by Donna Ward, we thank you for joining us tonight. The purpose of this forum is to give Bloomfield voters an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates running for the Board of Education. We appreciate each candidate for taking the time to share their respective perspective and for their community commitment to serving our community. All candidates were invited to participate in this evening's forum. The four of the student slate, composed of Thomas Heaney, Quan Miller, and Andrew Lamonti, unanimously declined to participate, noting that they were unavailable this evening. This evening's forum will be moderated by Donna Ward, a trained moderator from the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area, who will review the format and guidelines before we begin. Questions for tonight's discussion were solicited in advance from members of the Bloomfield community. We've also opened the Q&A feature this evening. If you have additional questions for the candidates, please feel free to submit them. While we may not be able to address every question due to time limits, we will do our best to include as many as possible. Please note that for tonight's forum, it's being recorded and will be available tomorrow on the League of Women Voters of the Montclair area YouTube channel. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Bloomfield DE&I Network, a group of current and former Bloomfield residents, parents, students, and educators committed to promoting anti-racist practices and advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools and across our community. I will give it to Carolina Gonzalez.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to all of the candidates for joining us and taking the time out and responding to the questions that are important to Bloomfield residents as they make their ways to the polls on November 4th and in early voting as well. I will pass it to Donna Ward to get us started and share with us details about how tonight will continue.
Thank you, Carolina and Joy, and it's a pleasure to be here. As everyone knows, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We don't support or oppose political parties or candidates. As has been mentioned, this forum is being recorded and will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel. We do encourage the sharing of the recording of this event in its entirety, but do not allow editing or making public any excerpts from the recording. And the candidates have agreed to this as part of this forum. The format for this is I'm going to be asking questions that have been solicited in advance by our sponsors. And the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening, a minute and a half to answer these questions, and a minute and a half for closing. In the meantime, as we go along, if you're participating tonight online, you are free to ask questions that you might have of the candidates in the Q&A, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. Just type in your questions, and if we can get to them towards the end of the forum, we'll try and get to a few questions from the audience. So with that, let's get going, and we're going to start in alphabetical order with opening statements, and we'll start with Jelani Jeffrey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here. I'm sure everyone would agree. We really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to speak with everyone and to hear everyone's viewpoints on all aspects of things. So excited to be here. A little bit about myself. I've been a Bloomfield resident for 6 years. I have 3 children that have gone to school here or going to school here. What made me decide to run is a couple of things. I really appreciate the fact that it's a bipartisan position because I think that gives the opportunity to see on both sides of the aisles best practices and come up with the best possible opportunities for all parties involved. The second and really most important thing is on children. through the process of being in this district, I've had a lot of experiences that have honed my skills as it pertains to understanding some of what is available that some parents don't know. It's not that it's not available, but as you go through the process, you kind of see the challenges. And so it put me in a position, a unique position to learn and to grow. And I'd like to be able to share that with everyone who needs it because I believe that we're really phenomenal as a district, but I believe we have the opportunity to do so much more. And outside of that, my other reason is because I believe that if you believe in change, that you shouldn't just talk about it and you shouldn't just, make statements about it, that you should be willing to be on the front lines if necessary. I'm willing to do that and have the difficult conversations if need be. So that's my reason.
Thank you. Carrie Joyce.
Hi, I apologize in advance if my son is loud in the background. I will try to keep him silenced, but very difficult. So I am a Bloomfield resident of about 20 years. I am a product of New Jersey school systems. I went to school in Bergen County. I went to Montclair State for my undergrad. I got my Evan baby, please. I got my master's degree and my MBA in Rutgers from Rutgers University. I also am a person living with a disability. I have multiple sclerosis. I also have a 6-year-old son who is autistic, and he is in the Bloomfield school system in the special education program at Oakview. And I feel very, very strongly about inclusion. I obviously have a lot of experience, both personally and with my son, in dealing with inclusion and just hardships. So I know how it can feel as a person and as a parent to deal with feeling like your needs aren't being met. That being said, I feel like I bring a lot to the table and I can represent a very diverse population between being a woman, being a working mom, being a working mom of a son with a disability, and being a mother, a woman with a disability. So my heart and soul is special education. I want to be the voice for these kids, especially the ones who can't speak for themselves. So it's very important to me to be
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
involved and
thank,
to be an advocate. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Benjamin Morse.
Hi, thanks for having me. As some of you know, I'm Ben Morse. I've been on the Board of Education for 8 years, 7 concurrently, and I'm running for re-election really to continue the great progress that's been made during my tenure. If anybody can remember 2018, the district was in a much different place than it is now in terms of curriculum, facilities, and personnel. The district, if you can remember, had a habit of failing its quality exam called QSAC because our grades were too low. And in very candid conversations with administrators, I found that there were 2 reasons. One was there were low expectations. 2, they thought it didn't matter because you could always get a waiver. And 3, we had phased out basic skills teachers. And after some key personnel changes, including elevating Joe Flores to assistant superintendent, we in the curriculum committee asked, what do you need to do to raise test scores? And the answer was to hire interventionists. So we got around to that. We hired 4 to 5 interventionists. We've passed QSAC, and that was for the first time in memory. And really, the educational situation has been improving in Bloomfield. I think you can see that in our graduates, and I just want to continue the progress. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Deanna Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. Like she said, I'm Deanna Wilson. I want to thank you so much for having me to this forum. So I have lived in Bloomfield for about 11 years. I have 2 children who are going through the school district right now. My daughter is 10 in 5th grade, and my son just started kindergarten. And I am very, very passionate about education, as I am continuing my education to a master's degree in ABA therapy. And And I just feel like every child should have that, right? Everybody should have a voice, someone that looks like them to represent them, someone that will advocate for them and be transparent. So my biggest thing about wanting to be on the board is to ensure that everyone has a voice, right? I want to be that voice for everyone. I want to advocate for everyone. I want to make sure that if it's programs that need to be put in place or programs that need to be implemented differently. I want to ensure that that is something that we can secure as a community, and just come together as a whole to make sure that the need is being met for our children.
Thank you. Great. Let's go to the first question, and the first Carrie will answer the first question, and then we'll go down the line. If elected, how will you advocate for policies that ensure Bloomfield hires and retains a more diverse teaching and leadership staff so that our schools reflect the diversity of our students? What concrete steps would you push the district to take, and how would you measure success? We'll start with Carrie. You should, can you unmute, Carrie?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all
I
right.
was on the wrong screen.
No.
Okay, so steps I would take would be to one, look at how the pay disparity is between teachers. So one thing we heard was that it seems that teachers that are people of color tend to be offered lower salaries and then tend to go to other districts with higher salaries. So we need to look across the board and see if this is a problem. And if so, how do we equalize the playing field for where we're hiring, what kind of salaries we're hiring, and are we being discriminatory in how we're offering salary to our new hires? Another thing I would do is I would like to see, I know we have partnerships with different local schools like Montclair State, Bloomfield College, but to get in there and really like make a stronger push for meeting with prospective teachers, going out and trying to hire or trying to gather interest from teachers and students who are at Montclair State University or Bloomfield College that are checking the boxes that we need. We need more teachers of
That's
different
great.
backgrounds. We need more different cultures.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. Time is up. Ben.
Hi, thank you. So this is an issue that's we've been talking about for years now, and I believe it's gotten better in the district. But as we all know, there's a teacher shortage out there. We were just at a convention, and everybody is talking about how they can diversify their staff. And if there aren't the people available, there's not a lot you can do. You still have to staff the building. You have to teach everybody. And so one of the things, when you don't get your first choice, what do you do with your second choice? How do you adjust? And one of the things we did was we brought in some consultants, Doctors Lattimore and Makula a few years ago. They gave presentations and sessions to teachers, administrators, everybody from even crossing guards and people who work in the cafeteria to try to create this environment. And I think when you can train any teacher a teacher should be able to teach anybody if they're a good teacher, no matter what color they are, what they look like, their background. You have to meet them where they are and elevate them. And that I think we can do through professional development. And I would like to comment on Carrie's comment that I don't believe the district is paying disproportionately low salaries, because that's not what we do in Bloomfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna.
I would say, make an initiative to have a more diverse pool, right? We want to increase the diversity. So let's figure out a way in increasing the diversity pool in regards to the hiring, right? Maybe have more partnerships with HBCUs, maybe increasing the student population from returning from going to school, right? So if we have diverse students here that want to teach, maybe let's offer them an incentive to come back and stay within the district or in the community, so that they're able to provide services here.
Thank you. Jelani.
Excuse me. So, my answer is math. And the reason why I say that is because I think that at some point it gets to, like, you hear a lot of things said, and the reality is that there is a lot of truth in everything that's being discussed. We can have programs that facilitate a more likelihood for people to want to come in and become teachers. If you have a shortage of people desiring to be teachers, what do you do about that? That's a valid question. The thing where I have a little bit of a challenge in understanding is that there's a lot of things starting to mirror each other. So you have some of the students. There's a complaint about how the students are disproportionately suspended or have issues at school. Then you have the teachers that are disproportionately set up in a certain way. I agree that a teacher should be able to teach anyone regardless of ethnicity, but then in the same regard, if we believe that everyone is equal, then is it really that we believe that there aren't enough people of different ethnicities that are qualified that be willing to be here, especially if it's that we also are comparable in rates, like Ben just mentioned. I think that the major thing is this: we really do need a culture change, and we need to open up the entire picture to really look at it appropriately instead of just trying to find a thing. Because one thing that echoes through for sure is that there's definitely discrepancies that mirror each other on more than one level. And we're not going to get to a solution just by picking a one thing, because respectfully, everyone here, and I believe that everyone that's been on the board prior is intelligent enough to make a choice like
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Jelani. Okay, moving on to the next question. So long as our elementary schools remain segregated, whether by racial and economic demographics or by uneven access to resources and enrichment programs, inequities will persist. For example, some schools in Bloomfield serve far higher concentrations of students of color or low income families, which often means smaller households with limited budgets, while others benefit from more resources and higher budgets. What solutions do you propose to address these disparities? And are you willing to advocate for meaningful change from within the board, even if it means facing opposition from colleagues or community members? We'll start with Ben.
All right, thank you. So one of the things we did to address this equity issue was when I first got on the board, we made the administration raise bus fees for elementary schools, and they probably did that because they didn't realize that some home and school associations struggle to raise several $1,000s, while others raise 60,000 or more. And so we said, this isn't fair. We're not raising fees. The next thing we knew, the administration came up with a solution of having free buses for field trips for all elementary schools, and this lifted a burden. So when we find a need that districts want, that schools when we find something that schools need like that, we have to, as boards, be aware, be in the community, and address them to the administration. We also go by, not by race, but by test scores and by your grades. If you need help at Watsessing, then you're going to receive it from the district in terms of an interventionist or push in, pull out, high impact tutoring, whether you're at Watsessing, Berkeley, or Oakview. So it doesn't matter where you're at or the station in your life. Your child is going to receive the services that they deserve to be able to bring up their grades. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Deanna.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
What solutions do you propose to address the disparities that we were talking about in terms of different concentrations of students of color or low-income families, which means smaller budgets? And are you willing to advocate for meaningful change from within the board, even if it means facing opposition from colleagues or community members?
Absolutely. I was a student of an issue, right, of such. So all of these issues are sensitive, like a sensitive topic to address. but we want to make sure that we know what area we are trying to see where the problem comes from, right? So maybe putting out a different poll. And it can be anonymous, but we want to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to really say or describe what their issue is, right? If the issue is the lunch, if the issue is the transportation, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to let us know directly so that we could directly have a solution for what the issue at hand is. We don't want to guess. So if putting the initiatives in place to try to determine exactly how we can fix that, I think just putting that committee together to ensure that those services are met, will be a great thing, right? So pinpoint exactly where the issues are, pinpoint exactly how we can address those issues so that moving forward, there is a better solution to that.
Thank you. Jelani.
Right. So I think this is a very layered question because there's a lot of things that contribute to it. For one is that all of Bloomfield isn't priced the same. And for that reason, you're going to have, just like in any area that you live in, you're going to have some areas that are easier for people to move into. And obviously, as poverty exists everywhere, or a challenge or having lesser income exists everywhere, then you're going to have more people able to move into certain areas that can't move into other areas, which then creates an issue within the schooling as far as how many kids can be to classroom, because the reality is maybe people can afford the Watesting area or the Berkeley area or the Fairview area or the Carteret area, but maybe not so much the Brookdale area, or the Oakview area, right? So now that puts you in a position of, well, what do you do? The first thing is, generally speaking, as a district, we have to understand that we need to support each other collectively and otherwise. Because if we do well as a district, we provide not only just a good background for our community as a whole, it's also for the children. It also creates just a better flow of environment, generally speaking. But I think that a part of the challenge is going to be the fact that things are separated by district in a particular way that makes it challenging to move that around. The intervention programs are, of course, helpful. However, in the same regard, there are some things that tests just cannot quantify for. And we have to start actually acknowledging that and moving towards it. And I'm not saying it's not being acknowledged by the current board. I'm just saying that realistically, it has to be done in order to come up with any true solution that can actually help this move forward in a particular kind of way. And the last thing is maybe we repurpose our
Thank
schools in a
you.
way.
Thank you. You're out of time. Thank you. Carrie.
So this is something I feel very strongly about, and I understand there's opposition to it, but I will strongly fight back on that. As a mother of a special needs child, am dealing with not only the local level, but the state level via IEPs and, evaluations and stuff to get the services in place that my son needs, or helping other special needs parents go through the processes to get their kids the services that they need. I think that all students should be viewed on some sort of similar, not viewed, but taken into consideration on some sort of similar level to the way we address issues with special needs kids, whereas it would become, part of the school's requirements to see where the problems are with each individual child. And if they to pick out a problem or see a child that needs help, whether it be being disadvantaged, being, having issues with test scores or problems at home, potentially mental health issues. I think we should treat all children the same way we're treating the special needs children, getting them the evaluations they need, getting them placements they need, getting them interventionists or counselors that they need. And I feel very strongly that this is something that the board should help mold and put into place some sort of protocol that all the schools would follow. And I will speak very strongly for the fact that if you're a parent whose child does not need these services, you should be thankful of that, and you should want to help the other children that need it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Earlier this year, the superintendent demoted a principal of color in a way many community members felt was inconsistent and lacking transparency. What role should the board play in holding the superintendent accountable for ensuring all school leaders, especially leaders of color, are supported and able to thrive? We'll start with Deanna.
Um, so with that, that was for me a very, I think it was unfortunate, right? I feel like as a district, we need to support our leaders regardless of the roles that they are in, right? One leader is responsible for hundreds of kids in a school at a time. And they need different support, right? They can't be all over the place at one time. So being demoted, I feel like without the proper support kind of was unsettling, right? So maybe putting in better communication from that superintendent to if it trickles down. So if it's a ladder, right? We want to make sure what proper training did they have? Did they not have the proper training? How can we seek the proper training? We want to ensure that they are receiving the support that they need to be able to handle certain situations. If they need to step away to ensure that the proper training is given. And also just communicate with the parents. You communicate with the parents as to what are we doing in regards to a situation. Also, have your leaderships back at the end of the day, right? We want to ensure that our kids are safe and that the leaders can control what's happening around them.
Great, thank you.
No
Jelani.
Excuse me. I think that it is my viewpoint on this is going to be that ultimately we need a culture change, just generally speaking. I think that when it comes to if the idea or the viewpoint is already that it wasn't handled in an appropriate manner, while the board definitively should have some role in that, if the public also feels a way, that's kind of where we should be leaning towards and how we should be handling things. I think that it's just sometimes things get put in categories they don't need to be in. It's like humane or not humane, as far as I see it. So if you demote someone and they were not either given the appropriate support or things were not handled in a manner that was effective or equal or equitable to everyone else, well, then that speaks for itself. There's really not much else to say. And I also don't think that it should just be on the board alone to have to come to a decision of whether or not that's the issue. I think that we really need to have an environment that considers the parents, the people, all parties involved. And definitively, of course, like just piggybacking off what Deanna said, appropriate training, appropriate understanding, make sure that everything is covered appropriately before casting stones. That would be my general answer to that, to be honest.
Thank you. Carrie.
I think that this situation was very unfortunate, and I'm actually very close to it. So I will say that it was handled kind of disappointingly, and I think it's also a bad precedent to set that there's. Let's go. Okay, sorry, babe, sit back. Um, that it seemed like this was a big jump, whereas I feel like we could have done better in, like others said, disciplinary actions up to not including termination right away. I don't know enough specifics about this, but just in general for the future, I think, of course, the oversight is responsibility of the board. And I think that between the superintendent and the board, there needs to be disciplinary reviews and more of a protocol on how to handle issues with administration principals, vice principals across the district that are, something that can be looked at and pinpointed and saying, okay, well, this is our protocol. These are the steps that we would take to correct, this problem X, Y, or Z, and just having something concrete and, district wide that is something that the board can offer oversight on.
Great, thank you. Ben.
Thank you. One thing that's there's this assumption that there was no support given to the principal, and I'm not entirely sure that that's true. But one thing I would like to mention about, employees in general, when there's an issue at a building, one thing that I've been advocating for is that if our principals tend to stay in a building and they're there for their career. A teacher gets put in a building, they're there for their career. I found that when I was teaching in Japan, teachers, principals, they moved around every 5 years or so to give, so you wouldn't get an entrenched bureaucracy at a school or an entrenched culture. You would get something like Jelani is saying, you would get a new culture would spring up when you have employees move around the district. And I think in that situation, you might avoid some of these issues where you get entrenched um, uh, practices and you're unable to change. And then you have an unfortunate situation like the one we had. But I think one other aspect of when you can move around people is that the best practices also get moved around the district, and that can be beneficial for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Many parents of children with IEPs and 504 plans feel that they have to become constant advocates just to get basic services for their children, as the Office of Special Services can sometimes be unresponsive or difficult to work with. If elected, what would you do to look into this issue and ensure that families receive timely, consistent, and respectful support from the district? Jelani.
I'm sorry. Me and the mute button was having a fight. Excuse me. This is actually a situation that's very near to my heart. I mentioned that I have three children. What I didn't mention in the beginning is that my son is neurodivergent. And in the process of going through learning about that, let me tell you, it was a very interesting circumstance for sure. It grew me up as a parent because there were a lot of things that weren't communicated or handled appropriately at all. And it ended up a lot of meetings were called to have like everyone together, it all the way up to superintendent level. All right. So I say that to say one is that I have no qualms about going wherever I need to go to handle whatever needs to be handled, because at the end of the day, like Carrie has mentioned, and it's so very true, I think the purpose of education is educating. It's not just dictating who you're going to care about educating or not. And I also think that it's important for us to make sure that we put equal emphasis in all parts of who we are educating, because you never know who's going to be the one that contributes to community in the way that changes our lives forever and for the better. So short answer is I would stand up for whatever it is that's necessary, however it's needed, because I've done it already before multiple times, and I don't plan on quitting anytime soon.
Thank you. Carrie.
So as a parent who has this battle of unresponsiveness and issues with having IEP, my son's IEP met, I put a lot of thought into this, and it is there's definitely a problem with, okay, sorry, baby. There's definitely a communication problem. So I think that how I would start is the actual administration within the school, meaning the principal and starting with the principal, it doesn't seem like there's a good partnership between principals and the special services department. So I would start there. We need to strengthen each principal and their school, and they need to have a better working relationship with our special services supervisors, because even though they're assigned to schools, their communication is not there. It's not good enough. This causes a lot of problems, because one issue we had was the principal didn't really know what was going on, and she was very much like, special services handles that, and then you try to get in touch with special services and it's difficult. So there needs to be better communication. And another thing that I would say is parents have rights, especially if your son or daughter has an IEP. You have rights through the state. So I think if more parents knew what their rights were and started becoming more vocal, this kind of forces the special needs department to become more proactive in communicating with parents and strengthening these relationships that are crucial for our children's IEPs
Right.
being met.
Thank you. Ben.
Thank you. So I think listening to the parents, as I'm listening to the people speaking just now about their experiences, is a way to identify the problems. And then you go ahead, and it sounds like we need better communication. I would say, in general, parents need, whether their child has an IEP or doesn't, you need to be an advocate for your child from when the moment they step into school, whether it's being part of a home and school association or getting them more hands-on involved in their education. If you think that you're just going to drop your child off at 8:30 and everything's going to be okay and you can just forget about it, it's not the case. You have to stay on them about everything, and that's going to be the case whether you have an IEP or you don't have an IEP. I know I listen to the parents when they come from the I think it's the SPAC group that meets the parent group, and issues get discussed there. They get reported to the board, and then we try to figure out, well, how can we solve these challenges that we face.
Thank you. Deanna.
So this is kind of close to me also, as a child care provider, right? Because I have kids who come in who have IEPs. So I do work with the Bloomfield district to try to get them transitioned over to Forest Glen because we're still in the preschool area. An IEP is not a one size fits all. If you do not know, there's no way that you can officially advocate for your child, right? So you're going to get on the phone with someone and they're going to tell you, oh, you have to call this person or you have to call that person. I feel like the parent, along with the staff, and I'll include myself, need to be properly trained and understand the steps to be able to properly advocate for your child, right? Um, Parents are always their kids' biggest advocates. If they don't know, how can they assist them? And then it becomes frustrating. So, like we know, an IEP is a legal binding document. So we want to make sure that that is implemented at all costs.
Thank you. Moving on to question 5. Some families know how to access resources and advocate for their children in schools, while others, often from low income or Black and Brown communities, struggle to find that information or support. What is your plan to make resources, information, and advocacy pathways more accessible and equitable for all families in Bloomfield? And we'll start with Kerry.
So actually, as I was leading up to committing to running or not over the summer, one of my best friends is a special education teacher, and she has a ton of certifications. And I said to her, if I were to get the seat on the board, would you be willing to do Zooms or in-person meetings and trainings for parents that would be free of charge, just so you can talk to them and help them understand the process and get them, up to speed, because a lot of them don't have access or just don't have the understanding of what's available to them. And she said, absolutely. So the reason I bring that point up is just because I think that there is actually an abundance of people who have specializations or knowledge in certain subject matters. And this does not have to be completely devoted to special needs or IEP children. This can be any particular thing. It could be STEM, it could be anything education related. I think that there are parents and teachers, and they don't have to be local to Bloomfield, but I'm just saying, that are willing to spend an hour of their time doing a Zoom call just to help educate, because that's what community does. So I think that something that I would like to look into as a board member would be to organize some sort of like regular or, quarterly or, bi-monthly kind of in-person meeting at the library or something where parents have the ability to come and learn, and you could do different topics. And
Thank you. Thank you. Ben.
So I think we have a teachers academy. We need to have a robust parents academy that we can. I've heard this over and over again. We have resources, but maybe we don't know parents don't know how to access them, not just parents, but caregivers in general. And so having that relationship is key. I think one of the things that got me excited about parents' relationships, caregiver relationship with this with the schools was our high impact tutoring program. This was where you had one teacher to four students get together, and you had to meet with the teacher ahead of time, and there was a commitment between family, teacher, student that this is what they were going to do. And once everybody was involved, it became very personal, and we saw great success with that, with in terms of um, attendance was up and also the study skills improved. So if we can get parents kind of in a better relationship with the teachers, I think it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna.
I would simply say just meet people where they are, right? Everyone does not have access to social media. And also probably just don't really know how to use social media, right? So meeting them where they are depends upon age, right? We want to speak about age, we want to speak about language barriers and things like that. Maybe let's advocate for postal mail if that's something that they need. I mean, we'll be using a lot of paper, maybe. But sending out notifications home through the child, send the paper home, letting them know what's going on. Virtual backpacks are great for the people who utilize email, right? And who can actually go to that email and be able to read all of that information because it's usually a lot of information that comes from a virtual backpack. Me being a parent, I know, right? I get them. For me, they're useful. For others, they probably wouldn't be as useful. Because of the time that we're in, we want to ensure that everyone is able to access the information. Let's have a monthly meeting at the schools. Maybe the HSA can assist with putting in their agenda, right? Making HSA meetings widely known so that someone can come in and ask the questions that they need the answers to have a better understanding as to what is going on. So we just want to make it accessible, meet them where they are.
Thank you. Jelani.
So Deanna mentioned meet people where they're at. Ben mentioned, make it a little more personal. He saw changes there. Carrie mentioned community. And I think that all of those are the right answer and more because it really truly is a culture change collectively. I think that we have to stop using the labels of, where people are, whether it's like how do I say? A common denominator is when you have poverty or lower income, there are certain things that come with that. It really has nothing to do with the color of the people's skin. It has more to do with the experience they're having. And so to me, it is more about a culture change. What we portray to the parents they need in order to understand how to better support their children, but also what we actually house within our schools as it pertains to teachers and their focus to make sure that they understand how to reach the children and the parent. We need total buy-in if we're going to make a difference. And we also need to just be in a place where we understand the importance of, again, like Deanna said, meeting people where they're at. But like Ben said, keep it personal. And from a community perspective, make it a point to just be able to understand that we all rise together. And that's really where we need to be mentally. And last is we have to emphasize and push for more community involvement, not because they're not doing enough, but because we need to just make sure that they understand how valuable they really are to everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to just stop here with these are some of the questions that have come in advance, and I'm going to check with Carolina because it looks like we do have some questions that have come in from the people who are online now. Carolina, are there any questions that you'd like to ask now?
First of all, thank you everyone for submitting some additional questions in the Q&A. We will try to get to all of them, some of them, most of them, but we want to make sure that we respect your time and your evening routines. So we'll start with selecting a question that aligns with some of the themes that were discussed today. So the first one is, what is your opinion regarding equally dividing funds raised by HSAs across the town to evenly share this money and reduce the size of socioeconomic gap for enrichment programs, field trips, cultural events, etc.?
We'll start with Ben.
Thank you. I'm not really in favor of that. I think it will become a disincentive if a parent knows that a parent right now can donate money to any home and school across the district. You don't need to say, hey, half of your money is going to be whatever money is raised gets here and there. Parents give money to where their child is. That's just a natural thing. But what I want to know is, what are students missing out on? I know playground equity is a big issue. We have some schools where home and schools raise a lot of money and put in nicer playgrounds. And I bring that up all the time. When are we going to have South End schools with beautiful, some grass to play in? So I don't think splitting home and school monies are a way to go. We had years ago, we had some schools with a lot of smart boards, a lot home and schools were buying them. We said, let's have the district put in for that. So any technology now that's bought is bought across the district for everybody. It's not a home and school decision. And that's just, I think I'm going to stop there because, yeah, I don't believe that we should share the money across home and schools because it would become a disincentive to raise money for some of those parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna.
As a parent, I think, well, to my knowledge, I believe that the HSAs are their own entities, right? So I know at Demarest, we raise a lot of money. So we do a lot of activities, and our HSA lets us know what they plan to do with the funds, right? I feel a parent should be able to give to their own HSA and not really feel bad. Now, if we want to ensure that other schools are getting additional supports or anything, I mean, we could try to help them with fundraising because I know Demarest, we do a lot of fundraising. So I know that's where a lot of our funds come from. So since our students work hard for that, I feel like they should be compensated for the work that they do for their school. If other schools need assistance with that, I feel like maybe HSAs can come together as a whole and figure out different ways to, whether it's fundraise or distribute the funds. But I don't think the board should have any say of what the HSA does, what they do with their funds.
Thank you. Jelani.
I think that that's kind of it's a complicated question to touch because, as Deanna said, they are their own separate entity. Whether the board has a say in it or not is, up for debate. But the other thing is, so one is, if we're looking at each other as a community, and if the purpose is to raise these things to provide enrichment across, like for the students overall, if you raise up your community collectively, then you raise up everything collectively, regardless of what you're doing and where you're doing it, right? So in that regard, coming up with more money together and maybe finding ways that might give us the opportunity to maybe, for lack of better words, let's say there's trips that were involved, or there's uh programs that you're planning for. The more funds that are collectively there together maybe give us opportunity to bargain a little bit better, which will make prices lower, so ultimately you won't feel the pinch. But it is also a fair thing to say that if you as a parent and a group of individuals are working towards raising funds in a particular place and you feel like, hey, we're raising it for this purpose, then let's do that. So I think that any way you cut it, it's a complicated thing. But what I would say is, if you're leading with community, then in the upfront, it might be a little bit challenging. But as you work together collectively, I think that you'll see that those unevennesses will balance out ultimately. And then it becomes a community trying to do the best for the children and not just, well, because I raised money here, I think that we deserve to do this and vice versa.
Okay. Thank you. Carrie.
I also agree that it's a bad idea to split the funds. I think that if we were to enact that, and there would be, very upset parents from certain schools because, like everyone else said, these kids do work very hard at fundraising. Fundraising is not easy. So to have someone come in and say, well, you raise those funds, but we're going to split it and divvy it up amongst other schools, that seems very unfair. What I would suggest, and something I've been starting to see a little bit more, like the Bloomfield Pulse has been passing along, the dine out for Demarest or dine out for Watsessing, broadly to the community, I think that's something that is a really good idea. If every school knew, you know, what in the virtual backpack, there's going to be dine out. Well, here's the dine out flyer for Demorest. Here's the dine out flyer for Oakview, and kind of opening it up to the community and saying like, hey, if you want to order out tonight, and just go here and, you know, mention Oakview, and then even though you're a Watsetting parent and vice versa. So I think that if you just kind of broach that subject a little differently with the town, you'll have more of an outpouring of people who want to help. And as opposed to coming in and telling each school, which is its own entity, that they have to give funds that they fundraise on their own.
Thank you. Carolina, is there another question, or would you like me to go from the pre-submitted?
Well, the community is really anxious to with questions and eager
Okay,
to ask
okay.
questions. So I'll ask another one.
Okay.
This is a little complex. So in the Bloomfield School District, there are families who are inconvenienced by having their elementary school children split up and attending different schools versus siblings attending their zone school together. The reason for this is not every school is equipped to offer the specific services that are necessary to ensure all students are successful academically and emotionally. What solutions would you propose to help keep families together to avoid one student attending their zone school and another one being bused across town to another school?
Start with Deanna.
So, from my experience, I know that the kids get separated due to if they have an IEP or not. I'm assuming that's where that question is coming from. Um, I know that certain schools house certain specialties, right? So it is unfortunate that they do have to be separated. I would just say that we just have to find the system for it, right? We want to make sure that all schools can be equipped with those. But unfortunately, right now, I know it's a battle with space, right? So if we can accommodate the change and ensure that each school can accommodate that, that is something that we can look into. But unfortunately, from my knowledge, because I do have a niece and they go to two separate schools, so I know my sister is very annoyed with that situation also. So I just know that they're program based and it kind of is unfortunate right now. So hopefully we could put in place services at all the schools once I believe the spacing is available for it. And
Thank
the
you.
staff, because we want to ensure that the staff is equipped to have everything that they need also.
Thank you. Jelani.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think that agreed. If we're talking about the same thing, then based on the way that the schools are currently set up, it does make it challenging. But having a child that is neurodivergent and understanding what is necessary for them in order to grow to be better, family is also really important. The ability to have as much association with their environment and normalcy with the way that their experience would be is paramount to their overall development. But what Deanna said is true. The challenge is that certain schools specialize in certain things based on the space that they have available and what they're seeing collectively. And I just know this from experience because of what I went through with my own son. So the reality is that, and this is why I say culture change, and I keep saying that, I'm going to say it from the rooftop, because we have to get to a place to where we understand that we kind of really need a restructure of things. And I don't think that it's an overnight thing, but I think it's something that we need to understand so that we as a community, as a board, and as an overall place can work to make this difference and be available to kind of make these things happen. But there's no short answer to that. And for whomever's question it is, believe me, I understand. I've been there.
Thank you. Carrie.
I agree. This is a difficult question to answer. Uh, it's just it's a hard pill to swallow. Listen, I live in the Demarest section. My son goes to Oakview because that's where the class that he needs to be in is. And this district does their best to place children in the closest school to their home space that offers that program that that child needs. But my fear is that if we try to put every single student in the school that is closest to their home to keep them with their siblings or to not bus them, then you run the risk of the children not, their needs not being met, their IEPs not being met, their their education just not being what it should be, because then you have to hire more staff, you have to hire more special education teachers or specially certified teachers and paraprofessionals, and then that becomes an extra expense. And then do you have the classroom space, and is the classroom only going to be a handful of kids because there's not enough kids in that area to go to that class? So as much as I hate to say this, the way it is now, having concentrated classes in certain schools, because that's how you can best get those kids the education and the support that they need, is the best for the student.
Thank you. Ben.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't see an easy solution to this. There just might not be space in a classroom at another school. If a child without an IEP were to follow their sibling to another school, there might not be the classroom there, the class space. Busing would become an issue also. I don't know actually if they could take the same bus or would they have to take a different bus. One possibility is that if there is space available, perhaps there could be an accommodation if the parent approached the board and the administration and everything worked out. It might be possible, but right now, I just don't think we're set up to manage that. So it's unfortunate, but this is the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question, right, Carolina? Do you have one?
Sure. This question has been asked in many different ways, so I just reformatted it to reflect folks' sentiment of this question. So, what is your, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my space. So, reports of racism across the district in schools, both elementary, middle, and high school, including from staff and administrators, have deeply concerned students and families. What concrete steps would you take to hold school leadership accountable and to create a culture where racism is actively confronted and not tolerated?
Jelani.
Again, that's pretty much everything in there. Culture change again, right? But I don't know what the board has the opportunity to do or not do. But what I would say is I would do everything within my power to bring those things to light. The board is one of 9 people, so obviously you have to come to some kind of agreement. But the basic answer to it again, and I'm going to continue to say, because I was that person who felt like you needed to just fight hard enough in one direction and maybe something will get done. Now that's good when you're pointed with when you're placed with purpose, but here's the issue. This is a humane issue. This is an issue that if we don't understand as people that people deserve respect regardless of their color and their creed, that they don't deserve to be handled appropriately, there's just certain things we shouldn't do or shouldn't say. What is the purpose of being racist or interacting in particular manners that are inappropriate towards other human beings? I mean, I can talk to you about a policy, but the reality is that it reflects a lot of things that are going on collectively in the world. So what is a policy in an isolated area going to do for an overall circumstance? We need to change the way that we function. We need to be involved as a community and stand up for these things as a whole. A board member can say anything, but at the end of the day, if we don't make it a point on whatever side of the aisle you are, I believe that every human being, regardless of their creed or color, there are people who understand that we're just humans trying to do the best that we can, and we should respect each other as such, regardless of what we think or what we've been through. And if we do that, I think it'll make a very big difference in how things are received.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's Carrie, are you there?
Yes. So I've heard from other parents that their concern is just the harassment and bullying policy not being met. So I think that's a good starting place just to make sure that every school district is following this policy, and parents are being kept up, and students who are the aggressors are being properly disciplined according to policy, and that written reports are happening, and that everything is being properly documented, because I think there is a problem that's being swept under the rug and not being addressed. And if you're not addressing it and confronting it head on, then it's just going to fester and grow. So I think a big part of the board's oversight responsibility is to hold each school accountable for making sure that the harassment and anti-bullying policy is known and implemented and practiced, and that proper disciplinary action is being taken.
Thank you. Ben.
Thanks. I think if you guys can figure out how we can end racism in society, I'm going to be all for it. It's obviously one of the more challenging things that we've been dealing with in society, and now there's in the school district. So it's mirroring what's going on out there. We have processes in place, and they're not perfect. As Carrie said, I think when you make sure that policies are being followed, evaluations are being done. You can bring in a mediator if need be. We have a really good restorative practices pilot program at Demarest that I think is being very successful. And if we can fan that out to the other elementary schools, it would give them an opportunity to get involved in the same processes. In the high school, when we hired Doctors Lattimore and McCullough, having some professionals like that around who could be a dispassionate not dispassionate, but a third party, an independent third party who can help mediate some of our difficult situations, I think might go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna.
So unfortunately, I know this is an issue that has been going on. So first I would say just having those discussions, right? Sometimes having a hard conversation with someone is just that, a hard conversation. But in the world that we're in right now, you have to have the tough conversations. Have discussions with the staff, have discussions with the children. I know at Demarest we have the restorative justice program, right? So if we can implement practices from the restorative justice, talking to the children, see where they are, but also the teachers as well, right? We want to hold everyone accountable, right? So no one should talk down on anyone. We want to ensure that, again, that anti-bullying policy is implemented across the board, right? Because as adults, you should be held accountable for your actions as well. As an adult, you should lead by example. So with that, we want to ensure that the board, along with the administration, can lead properly, right? So I do recall, like Ben said, we had the board invested in someone coming in to do training, that DEI training. I can't remember her name, Dr. McCool, I think, right? So if we could take those practices and use them, that'll be great. But again, everybody needs to be held accountable for their actions in the world that we're in right now is just where we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace. That's it in terms of the questions. Now we can move right to your closing statements.
Donna,
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carolina.
before we move on, I won't ask any additional questions,
Sure.
but I just wanted to just name the three particular topics for the remaining questions so the candidates understand what's at the top of mind of some of the residents in Bloomfield. So a question that we couldn't ask today related to the retention of teachers. What do we do for the retention of teachers, particularly diverse staff and teachers in the district? The other one was expanding district-wide the restorative justice practice program that is currently at Demarest. And the last question that also we weren't able to address related to what is the plan? What is your plan to make sure that all schools have a way to integrate the arts program in a consistent way, and not at a detriment of the teachers who have to go from place to place to place with their own carts and materials. So those are the three questions that we weren't able to respond to today, and it was important to raise them or amplify them so you know what's also in people's minds. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Carolina. Okay, let's start with closing statements and we'll go in reverse order. So we'll start with Deanna.
Again, I'm Deanna Wilson. I do want to thank everyone for joining in and watching us tonight. So as a childcare provider and a mom, my goal is to just, I'm sorry, my laptop's not. Is to just promote transparency, right? We want to be transparent. We want to be able to communicate properly. We want to implement services that could be mental health supports for people who need them, and just overall be there as a community, right? We want to make sure that everyone can be involved and have someone who is there that looks like them, right? Whether they feel compassionate. To me, I'm a compassionate person. Everybody tells me you're so compassionate. You do a lot. So we just want to make sure that I'm doing my part in doing a lot and being that community that I'll advocate for everyone. And also ensuring that the kids are receiving the academics that they require. Like I stated in the beginning, I'm very big on academics, hence the why I'm going back to school to receive my master's. So because I am a very big advocate for that, we want to make sure that the students receive what they need by holding everyone accountable, including the administration.
Thank you. Ben.
Thanks. So I think over the last 7 years, if you've been watching the district, you've seen that the progress we've made. I have some the experience of being on the board and dealing with administrators and the situation and all the challenges that come with it. I've learned how to be a board member, and I think that experience will be valuable going forward, particularly with this upcoming budget cycle where the state budget is volatile to say the least. We're not sure what's going to happen. And if we look at how our 2% tax cap, there's going to be some challenging or difficult decisions that need to be made. And I think I've earned through my experience, earn the right, or not the right, earn the oh gosh. This is a time for words to fail right now at the end. So I just want to say, having the experience to deal with things that are coming up that I think are going to be challenges will be good. Being a school board member is a state of mind, and you have to learn how to act within the whole ecosystem. And I've learned how to do that over the next 7 years, and I would look forward to another 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carrie.
Sorry, I'm not a professional at Zoom. So first of all, I want to thank you for hosting this forum. I want to thank everyone for participating, and I do want to address that. I'm sure you all saw my son in the background. I hope you got a little chuckle with his backwards waving. He is the reason that I decided to run because, I mean, when he started pre-K at age 3, he was nonverbal, and now I know you couldn't hear him because he was on mute, but he's talking up a storm. And again, like I said, special education is my entire heart and soul, but my entire heart and soul can grow, and it is growing to the entire community. And I really, really do adore all the children that I've met in this community, whether they're special needs or not. But I just want to be an advocate for the kids, all kids, my son, his peers, Deanna's kids, Jelani's kids, everyone's kids. They're so precious and they deserve the best from us. And we had a fantastic experience at Forest Glen. We've had a not so fantastic experience at Oakview. So I see room for improvement. I see where our strengths are, and I want to be a board member to work on continuing our strengths and fixing our weaknesses. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jelani.
I'd just like to start by thanking everyone from Slate Mason Ben to everyone that had anything to say or ask. These are always these are the things that really make a difference as it pertains to how we think and look at things. I think that just from the perspective of being here, as I mentioned, I could tell you a whole bunch of reasons why to vote for me, but instead I'll tell you about my principles and what I really feel. I think that the questions that we're asking are good questions and they're important, but the work is more than I think we know. I found that out as a parent. And that's what put me in the position to want to do, to want to be willing to run, be willing to have the hard conversations and go through the tough circumstances, and understanding that you're going to be fighting against a lot of very uphill battles, but you need to be willing and have the wherewithal to make that fight. You may not know a lot about me personally, but I can tell you that I'm a fighter and I've been fighting my whole life, and in a positive way. It's been a blessing. So I say this as it pertains to teachers. I think that teachers are one of the most important people that we can ever have in the world. And so if we want to know what we can do to retain them, we need to hear their conversations more. I speak to community because at the end of the day, we're stronger in numbers. And even though the board represents the board, the community is who we fight for. And so I leave you with this. We can do and say anything, but at the end of the day, with your support, with your views, with what's important to you, we are stronger, and we can change a lot more than just what happens in Bloomfield if we stick together and handle things the right way. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, thank you so much for a lively and informative forum. Thank you to the Black Citizens of Bloomfield Group and the Bloomfield DEI Network, two ladies. And I know to those of you watching, the candidates will want me to remind you that now it's time to vote. There are 3 ways to vote in New Jersey. You can vote by mail-in ballots, which have already gone out. Early voting has also already started. And of course, you can vote in person on Election Day on November 4th. No matter how you do it, though, please, though, do go out and vote because these candidates are looking for your support. Carolina, anything that you or Joy would like to say? If not, I'll wish everyone in Bloomfield good night and good luck, candidates, in the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.